Good evening, citizens of Earth. 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 Citizens of Earth.
The second way social justice may be undermined through actions or inactions of government is obviously when decisions are made in a corrupt way, or decisions that are influenced by a conflict of interest, or decisions are made that siphon government funds away from the causes that they were meant for. In that case, then we're not able to put money into education, health, social welfare, and all other causes.
I'm with the Southern Africa Litigation Centre that brought the application to have Sudanese President al-Bashir arrested when he attended the African Union Summit in June of this year. The Bashir case has polarized viewpoints of many on what should have happened. However, very few people disagree with the reasoning that President Bashir should not have been allowed to leave the country in violation of a court order. This has led to a situation where South Africa is viewed as experiencing a grave constitutional crisis and is well on its way to becoming a rogue state. Former Constitutional Court Judge Yvonne Mogoro said that she was still reeling in shock at what appeared to have been a blatant disregard for a court order. Attacks against the judiciary are part of this constitutional crisis. The South African attempts to have President al-Bashir arrested is not an isolated case. It is part of a well-coordinated strategy, both by governments and civil society organizations globally who are working against impunity for war crimes. The intervention by the Southern Africa Litigation Centre was appropriate and well considered, even though highly criticized. I must also point out that as the Southern Africa Litigation Centre, we waited until there was sufficient proof that President Bashir was in the country, and then we waited for the state to act. We waited a long time to see what the response would be. We had it on good authority that the NPA were planning to arrest this individual, and it was only when they took no action that we filed this application to be heard on an urgent basis. We filed this application 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday night of a long weekend. I am angry at what happened in the al-Bashir situation. I am angry at the state, and this includes members of the cabinet and the president. Sorry. Sitting in court over those 2 days, we observed a series of delays from the state, which all contributed to the final outcome of President Bashir's being able to leave the country without the finalization of the hearing. The instruction to openly defy an order of court could only have come from very high within the South African government, possibly from the highest point.
The assault, the frontal attacks on the public protector's office, the attacks on the other Chapter 9 institutions, the attack on the judiciary, the turmoil, absolute chaos that is unfolding in the state-owned enterprises that we read literally about every day, to me forms part of a general crisis where some hyenas hiding somewhere would have decided deliberately that all the organs of people's power, COSATU, the civil society organizations, and the Chapter 9 institutions must be attacked, must be hollowed out, must be blunted, must be domesticated, so that we end any further possibilities of anyone holding those who are doing clearly what is wrong accountable. And secondly, to drive this nation towards only one way, and that is the way towards a failed state and a kleptocracy, a democracy, a predatory type of a capitalist system where the order shall be corruption and non-accountability. And that's how I look at the tragedy that is unfolding in the Federation.
I can tell you that many of our public hospitals are failing because people are appointed as the chief executive officers of those public hospitals as some sort of repayment for something political. I can tell you that what happened with one person who was the head of the Limpopo Health Department, was dismissed as the head of the Limpopo Health Department, pitched up at Ditlebang Hospital in Bethlehem as the CEO of that hospital, contributed to the worsening of delivery and the total crisis of that hospital, where people now don't even have lifts, so people have to be carried up the stairs in bags because the ICU is on the first floor, on the ground floor, and the wards are on the fourth floor. And then when he finished at Ditlebang Hospital, he was appointed head of health in Mpumalanga again. That's the nature of cadre deployment, and it's destroying the fabric of our country, and it's destroying futures. You know, it's possible to have a peaceful revolution. And in this country, it is time that citizens stood up again and asserted their power and spoke about what is wrong and what can be done to right what is wrong. And what we hope, and we appeal to all of you about August the 19th, is that it will be such a large demonstration of so many people representing the diversity of this country. It's not a Vavi march, is it, Zweli? That it will start to make corruption politically untenable. We're demanding specific things on that march. We're demanding that hidden reports, investigations by the SIU be published. We're asking questions why people like Brian Tlongwa, the former head of health in Gauteng, who has been investigated by the SCU, still occupies a senior position in the Gauteng Assembly, and why those reports have not been published so that people can judge and demand action themselves. We're demanding that there's no longer impunity for corruption. If you look at the number of people who've been prosecuted, public and private, for corruption, very few people have been prosecuted. And we're demanding that the people who stand up against corruption, the whistleblowers, are protected, because many of the people who report corruption, such as somebody senior in Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital at the moment, end up finding themselves driven out of those jobs and finding themselves unemployed. So there's very, very concrete demands. But the first challenge with the march is to get people out on the streets to show that these levels of corruption that have been described by Vavi are not acceptable to us as a people.
When you hold the march, challenge those who are corrupted, as expose those who are doing the corrupting. The arms deal, those were global corporations backed by powerful countries who got away scot-free. The spotlight needs to shine on them. Electricity theft in this country is not, and water theft in this country is not just by the poor people that you see in townships who are caught. Question I raised recently with the police commissioner: who's investigating electricity theft by big corporations? And we know it is happening. She said she hasn't received a complaint. So maybe in terms of the corruption, we spotlight the structural issues as well and deal with them.